Fahad, it's Ray Hanania. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Ray. It's good to be with you.
It's a real pleasure. I so appreciate you. With me on the line is Fahad Nazer, the spokesperson for the Embassy of Saudi Arabia in the United States. Prior to his appointment, Nazer served as political consultant to the Saudi Embassy in Washington, D.C. He has a master's degree in political science from St. John's University in New York and a bachelor's degree in political science from New York University. President Biden announced plans to visit Saudi Arabia probably, I believe, early next month. I don't have the exact dates. But from your standpoint, Fahad, and the standpoint of Saudi Arabia, what does it signify and mean for the future of the relationships between the two countries?
So Saudi-U.S. relations are longstanding. They have endured for 80 years and have continued to strengthen and deepen under both Republican and Democratic administrations. In many ways, this partnership is multidimensional. It has a political element that includes working closely to resolve some of the ongoing crises in the region, the war in Yemen being a prime example. It also has a military dimension that includes not only regular joint training exercises between our two forces, but also joint military operations. There is also an equally important economic dimension that entails dozens of American companies investing in the kingdom, opening factories and offices, and Saudi companies doing likewise, investing and doing business in the U.S. And there's also an often unfortunately overlooked people-to-people cultural component that entails tens of thousands of Saudis studying in the United States and tens of thousands of Americans working in and living in the kingdom for decades. So we are looking to, so at the same time, we're trying to broaden this cooperation to include some of the newer challenges and perhaps opportunities that the international community faces, like climate change, space exploration, and cybersecurity. So the fact that President Biden is visiting the kingdom on his first trip to the Middle East, I think, is a testament to the strength and the durability of this relationship.
And also there's prices for oil and gasoline have increased significantly in the U.S. And I guess the question is Saudi Arabia, many people think they are, but is Saudi Arabia to blame for high gas prices in the U.S.?
On the contrary, I think that Saudi Arabia has been the voice of reason and moderation among oil producers for decades, really. The kingdom has always put a high premium on stable and balanced international energy markets. And I think it has, throughout all those years, has been mindful of the concerns of producers, consumers, as well as investors. We believe in the importance of burden sharing among producers for the long-term stability of the market. And really, I think in many ways over the years, both oil-producing nations as well as oil-importing nations have looked to Saudi Arabia for leadership. I think that the kingdom has done that through our leadership of OPEC for decades, and more recently through our leadership of this broader grouping known as OPEC Plus. Saudi Arabia was instrumental in inking or in the agreement that was concluded on April 12, 2020, between these OPEC Plus members that brought much needed stability to the markets. I believe that the agreement has proven effective, and it was designed in such a way to be flexible enough to respond to market demands. So we maintain a very robust dialogue with our American counterparts here on multiple levels of government. We include this dialogue includes a very broad array of issues and discussions, and which it does include energy stability as well.
Yeah, and I would say that over the past several decades, even more, whenever there's been a problem in the United States, the Saudis have always stepped in to help. They've been very supportive of a lot of the needs of the United States over the years.
Right. So I think we believe that we are in a somewhat unique position in the broader oil-producing community. And as you said, you're absolutely correct. I think we have a long legacy of stabilizing energy markets. If there's shortages, certainly we have stepped in over the years, going back to the 1980s and 90s. More recently, I think we played a very important leadership role with this OPEC Plus grouping to bring stability to markets. And again, I think we continue to lead that group. I think, in certainly everything I'm hearing from oil experts, and it's also our position, is that international crude markets are fairly stable, but we continue to have discussions with our partners in OPEC Plus, and also we continue to discuss this and other issues with our American partners as well.
And just a little bit on politics. Is it true that does Saudi Arabia have a better relation with the Republican leadership in the U.S. than they do with the Democratic leadership?
So as I mentioned at the outset, I think the relationship has made steady progress over the past 80 years under both Democratic and Republican administrations. So not only is President Biden visiting the kingdom on his first trip to the region, but I think it's also worth remembering that President Obama visited Saudi Arabia 4 times during his 2 terms, which I believe is the most visits by an American president. At the same time, Saudi and U.S. forces fought a war side by side to expel the terrorist group ISIS from Iraq and Syria beginning in 2014. This was also during the Obama administration. At the same time, Her Royal Highness Princess Rima bin Badr, our ambassador to the United States, maintains a robust dialogue with congressional leaders on both sides of the aisle. So I just don't think that this notion is very accurate, to be honest.
Do they need to improve relations, and what can be done to strengthen or improve relations with the Democrats?
Well, this dialogue, I think, goes a long way, but I think there's an appreciation in Washington, as far as I can tell, among congressional leaders and certainly in the administration, that Saudi Arabia plays a very important role globally. We play an important role globally in stabilizing international energy markets. We play an important role in helping bring stability and help resolve some of the political crises in the region, including the Yemen war. And we are playing a leading role, and we have played a leading role over the years in pushing back against militant non-state actors like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Houthis, and Hezbollah, and others. So I think there's an appreciation for that very constructive role that the kingdom plays. And, this is something that we discuss with our partners here in the U.S., as well as our neighbors and partners around the world.
And I understand that the president is coming based on an invitation from King Salman. He's going to meet with the king, and who else? What do we know what his plans are yet?
Yeah, so the president will meet with the custodian of the 2 holy mosques, King Salman, on the first day, but he will also have a separate meeting with His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, either the same day or the next day. And that meeting, the 2 leaders will discuss bilateral cooperation and joint efforts to address regional and global challenges, including, as I said, some of the newer challenges that the international community faces, including cybersecurity, climate change, and environmental initiatives. At the same time, the kingdom is hosting a summit that will include the leaders of the GCC countries, as well as the leaders of Jordan, Egypt, and Iraq, and obviously President Biden will be attending that as well.
Do you know what the focus of the summit is going to be?
It will discuss regional challenges more broadly. I think the region and the international community overall does face many challenges. And there's global inflation. There's obviously the crisis in Ukraine. There's, the conversation around stabilizing energy markets is ongoing. But these are some of our closest partners and allies in the region. And, any conversation that the kingdom has with its closest allies will always include the United States, because the United States is our most important strategic ally in the world.
And and just final couple questions. And Fahad Nazer, our guest for our listeners, the spokesperson for the Embassy of Saudi Arabia in the U.S., he's been kind enough to join us by telephone to talk about these issues. A few final questions. During the meetings, what do you think Saudi Arabia wants from the Biden administration? What is Saudi Arabia looking forward to?
So Saudi Arabia wants to empower its youth. It wants to empower its women. It wants to support entrepreneurs so that we have a diversified, thriving economy. Over the years, American companies have been in the kingdom for a long time, and they have contributed positively to our development in the past. And we believe that they will continue to play an important role in advancing this current and exciting stage in our development. The kingdom also wants to promote peace and stability, not just for us, obviously, but for our neighbors in the region. resolving crises and wars like the one we have in Yemen. We work very closely with the United States on that front as well. So any measures that brings and promotes stability and prosperity in the region is something that we obviously that we think are steps in the right direction. And as I said earlier, the international community also faces newer challenges like climate change, cybersecurity, and American companies have always been at the forefront of some of these cutting-edge technologies that we believe will help mitigate some of these challenges. So again, any steps, any agreements that we reach with our American partners, private sector or public, are steps in the right direction. And as I said at the outset, this is a relationship that has been mutually beneficial for us for decades. And it's worth noting that our policies align on about 90% of the challenges that we face. And as any sports fan will tell you, if you complete 90% of your free throws in basketball, for instance, or 90% of your passes in football, you're in a pretty good place.
Well, I know in American baseball, if you hit 300, 30%, you are doing great. So, Fahad, any final thoughts at all that anything you'd like to mention that I haven't asked about maybe what would constitute a successful visit or anything else that you'd like to add before we thank you for taking the time to join us?
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, for your listeners, if you have a chance, I think that if you have an opportunity, please do visit Saudi Arabia. We have made obtaining tourist visas for Americans and others very easy. I think that the kingdom is undergoing a very exciting transformation. As I said, Americans have been there from the beginning. They have helped develop the kingdom. We are looking to attract not just foreign businesses or American businesses and American investors, but really any American who's interested in learning more about the kingdom. Please visit us any chance you get, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Fahad, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I have known you a long time, and I hope I get a chance to, now that COVID is pretty much, I hope, run its course, I get a chance to come back to DC and see you again and maybe even meet the new ambassador. Thank you so much, Fahad, for joining us today on live radio in Detroit, Washington, D.C., and it'll be rebroadcast in Chicago.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure, Ray.
You're welcome. Fahad Nazer, spokesperson for the Embassy of Saudi Arabia in the U.S., with us talking about President Joe Biden's anticipated planned trip to Saudi Arabia, first trip to the region sometime next month. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to take a quick break, and then maybe we'll take some phone calls or we'll talk about some of the other issues that face us. Again, thank you, Fahad, for joining us. And we will take a break. We'll be right back right after these messages.